Maya adjusted the strap of her faded handbag as she stood in front of her small bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection with mixed emotions. The invitation card rested on the sink beside her toothbrush, a thick ivory envelope with golden letters embossed across it. "You are cordially invited to the wedding of Candace Williams," and she hadn't let herself read the groom's name more than once, brushing past it quickly each time as if it carried no importance. Candace was her cousin, beautiful, ambitious, the kind of girl who always seemed to have life handed to her on a silver platter. Maya, on the other hand, was still piecing herself back together. At 26, she worked 2 part-time jobs just to keep her rent paid in a tiny apartment. Life hadn't been kind, but she had learned to wear her struggles like invisible scars. And now, she was expected to show up at the grandest wedding of the year, smile and clap for someone else's happiness. Still, Maya couldn't deny the flicker of excitement inside her. Weddings had a way of making even the most broken hearts beat a little faster. She had picked her best dress, a deep emerald gown she had bought from a thrift shop, but altered by hand. As she slipped it on, she whispered to herself, "You'll be fine. Just one night. Celebrate Candace, then go back to your life." The wedding venue was nothing short of a fairy tale. Chandeliers sparkled above white marble floors, and roses, red, pink, and ivory, lined every table in crystal vases. Guests moved about in elegant gowns and sharp tuxedos, their laughter echoing through the high-ceilinged hall. Maya's heels clicked softly against the polished floor as she entered, clutching her small clutch bag nervously. "Cousin," Candace's voice rang out across the room. She looked radiant, wrapped in silk, her makeup flawless, her smile wide enough to light up the entire hall. Maya forced a smile and hugged her, inhaling the familiar floral scent that always seemed to linger around Candace. "You made it," Candace said warmly, holding her hands. "It means so much to me." Maya nodded. "Of course, I wouldn't miss it for the world." But inside, her chest tightened. She felt the weight of her own loneliness pressing harder than ever. Weddings had a cruel way of reminding her of everything she had lost, everything she once thought she deserved, but never got. The ceremony soon began. Guests shuffled to their seats, and Maya found herself near the front, hands folded neatly in her lap. The air buzzed with music, violins playing a sweet melody as the groom finally entered. Maya lifted her eyes, prepared to clap politely. But then, her heart stopped. The groom. Her breath caught in her throat as he walked confidently down the aisle, adjusting his tie, greeting a few guests with a practiced smile. He was taller than she remembered, his jaw sharper, but there was no mistaking him. It was Derek. Her Derek. The man who had once promised her forever, only to vanish without a word 3 years ago. The man who had left her broken, confused, and desperate for answers she never got. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of her seat, her nails digging into the fabric. A wave of heat flushed through her pulse pounding in her ears. He looked up for a moment, scanning the crowd, and their eyes met. The recognition in his gaze was instant. His confident smile faltered just slightly, but enough for Maya to know he remembered. The world around her blurred, the roses, the music, the murmurs of joy. All she could see was him, standing there in a tuxedo, about to marry her cousin. And in that moment, Maya realized this wedding was not going to be just another celebration. It was about to become her biggest nightmare. Maya's fingers were still trembling as the ceremony carried on, though she barely heard a word. The minister spoke with warmth. Guests nodded with smiles. But for Maya, everything seemed to fade into a dull hum. Her eyes stayed locked on Derek, the man she had once thought would be her future, now standing a few feet away, preparing to bind himself to her cousin. Memories she had buried deep began clawing their way back. 3 years ago, she had met Derek on a rainy evening at a coffee shop near her job. He had been the kind of man who knew how to walk into a room and take all the attention without even trying. His laughter was bold, his confidence magnetic. Maya, shy and soft-spoken, had been drawn to him instantly. He noticed her too. She remembered how he had leaned across the counter, flashing that same smile she had just seen on the aisle, and said, "I think you just made this rainy day worth it." From that moment on, they had been inseparable. He called her his future, whispered promises under starlit skies, and painted pictures of a life where they'd conquer the world together. Maya believed every word. She gave him her time, her trust, and eventually, her heart. But just as quickly as he had appeared, he disappeared. No warning, no explanation. One day he was hers, the next he was gone. She had searched for him, called, cried, prayed for an answer. The only response she ever received was silence. Now here he was, not only alive and well, but standing as the groom at her cousin's wedding. Maya's chest tightened, her breathing shallow. She wanted to scream, to run, to demand answers, yet she stayed seated, frozen in disbelief. Does Candace even know who he really is? Maya wondered, her thoughts racing. Did she know about us? Did he tell her, or did he erase me like I never existed? The ceremony ended with applause and cheers, the couple turning to face their guests. Derek's hand tightened around Candace's as if holding her was a performance. Yet when his eyes flickered back to Maya, she caught it, that split second of fear, recognition, and guilt. It wasn't over. At the reception, the music was loud, glasses clinked, and laughter filled the air. Maya tried to blend into the background, but her mind was anything but quiet. She couldn't stop replaying the years she had wasted, the nights she had cried, the way Derek had left her shattered. And now Candace, her own cousin, was in the middle of it all, smiling, completely unaware of the storm brewing just a few feet away. Candace floated across the hall in her gown, glowing as she introduced Derek to distant relatives. Maya's stomach twisted every time she heard Candace proudly say, "This is my husband." The conflict inside her grew heavier. Should I tell her? Should I ruin her big day? Or should I stay silent and let her live in the lie he's created? Derek, however, was not making it easy. He glanced her way often, his jaw tightening, his hand fidgeting whenever their eyes met. At one point, he excused himself from a group of guests and made his way toward her table. Maya's pulse spiked. She straightened in her chair, her throat dry. "Hey," Derek said softly when he reached her, his voice low enough that only she could hear. Maya looked up at him, her lips parting, but words refused to come out. He leaned closer, his eyes pleading though his smile remained fixed for the crowd. "Please, not here. We need to talk." The room spun. Every instinct told Maya to slap him, to call him out right there in front of everyone. But another part of her, the part still wounded from years ago, wanted answers. Before she could respond, Candace's laughter rang across the hall, pulling Derek's attention back. He straightened, gave Maya a look that was half warning, half desperate, and walked back to his new bride. Maya's fists clenched in her lap. This was no longer just about heartbreak. This was a secret that had the power to destroy her family, and she wasn't sure how long she could keep it inside. The reception was in full swing, yet Maya felt as if she were trapped in a cage with no escape. Laughter erupted around her. Glasses of champagne sparkled under the chandeliers, and the DJ played upbeat music that had cousins and aunts dancing in circles. But for Maya, every sound seemed muffled, every movement blurred. All she could focus on was Derek. He moved gracefully through the crowd, shaking hands, smiling for pictures, whispering something into Candace's ear that made her giggle. To everyone else, he looked like the perfect groom. But Maya saw it differently. She noticed how his eyes darted toward her table more often than they should. She noticed how, behind that charming smile, his jaw tightened each time their gazes collided. Maya's appetite was gone. The plate in front of her sat untouched, her fork merely tracing circles in the mashed potatoes. Inside, she battled herself. Should she get up and leave, pretending she had never seen him again? Or should she demand the truth that had haunted her for years? Her answer came sooner than she expected. As the music shifted to a slow song, couples filled the dance floor. Candace was whisked away by her bridesmaids for a quick wardrobe change, leaving Derek momentarily alone. Maya tried to keep her eyes on her phone, but she sensed his approach before he even reached her. "Come with me," Derek muttered under his breath, his smile plastered on for anyone watching. He didn't wait for her response, just brushed past and headed toward the side doors. Maya's chest tightened. Her instincts screamed at her to stay put, but her legs betrayed her, carrying her after him. They slipped out into a quiet hallway, the music from the reception now a faint thrum behind them. The hall smelled faintly of roses and polished wood. Derek turned to face her, his confident facade finally cracking. "Maya," he began, his voice low, urgent. "Don't," she snapped, her voice sharp. "Don't you dare say my name like we're old friends. Not after what you did." He exhaled, running a hand over his face. I know I hurt you. But you can't say anything tonight." Her eyes narrowed. "You disappeared, Derek. Do you have any idea what that did to me? And now I find you here, married to my cousin? How could you?" Derek glanced away, his shoulders tense. "It's not what you think," Maya scoffed. "Not what I think? You're standing in a tuxedo with a ring on your finger. That's exactly what I think." He stepped closer, lowering his voice even more. "There are things you don't know. Things I couldn't tell you back then." His eyes searched hers, desperate. "Maya, I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because I had no choice." Her heart pounded. What does that even mean? But before he could answer, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the hall. A bridesmaid popped her head around the corner, smiling. "Derek, pictures with the family. They're waiting for you." His expression shifted instantly back to the groom's mask. "I'll be right there," he called smoothly. Then he looked at Maya one last time, his eyes heavy with unspoken words. "We'll talk later, please. Don't say anything yet." And with that, he disappeared back into the noise and light of the reception, leaving Maya in the dim hallway, her heart racing faster than ever. She pressed her back against the wall, closing her eyes. His words echoed in her head. "Things you don't know." I had no choice. What did that mean? For the first time, Maya realized the situation might be far more complicated than she imagined. Derek wasn't just her ex. He was hiding something. Something big enough that he was willing to marry her cousin to keep it buried. And now, she wasn't sure if exposing him would only shatter Candace's world, or if it might also shatter hers. Later that evening, after countless photographs, endless dancing, and speeches filled with laughter and wine, Maya slipped outside for some air. The cool night breeze brushed against her skin, carrying the faint scent of roses from the garden. She needed space to think, to breathe, to untangle the storm raging inside her chest. But she didn't get the chance. "Maya," a voice came from behind. She spun around. Derek stood a few feet away, his tie loosened, his expression weary. The mask he wore inside, of the charming, perfect groom, was gone. Out here, he looked vulnerable, her jaw tightened. "You shouldn't be here. You should be with your wife." He winced. "Don't call her that, please." Maya blinked in disbelief. "Excuse me? You just married her, Derek. Don't play games with me." He stepped closer, his voice urgent but low. "I didn't marry Candace because I love her. I married her because I had no choice." Maya folded her arms. "That's the second time you've said that. You owe me the truth. Tonight." Derek's gaze dropped for a moment, as if gathering courage. When he finally looked up, his eyes were heavy with guilt. 3 years ago, when I disappeared from your life, it wasn't because I wanted to leave you. I was in trouble. Deep trouble. There were debts, people after me. If I stayed, I would have dragged you into danger. So I walked away. Maya's stomach flipped. "Danger? Debts? And you thought vanishing without a word was the answer?" "It was the only way to protect you," he said firmly. "And by the time I could come back, everything had changed." Her laugh was bitter. "Changed? You mean you found my cousin and decided she was a safer option?" He shook his head quickly. "No, I never planned this. Her family, your family, they offered me a way out, a chance to rebuild, but it came with strings attached. They wanted me to marry Candace. It was part of the deal." Maya froze. "What deal?" "Money," he whispered. "They cleared my debts. They promised protection, but in exchange, I had to be the husband Candace deserved." Her chest tightened. "So you sold yourself into marriage? For money?" His silence was answer enough. Maya stared at him, her heart twisting between anger and pity. He had broken her, abandoned her, and now he stood before her claiming it had all been to save her. But how could she believe him when her cousin's happiness was now tangled in his lies? "You should have told me," she said finally, her voice cracking. "You owed me at least that much." "I know," Derek whispered, his shoulders slumping. and I wanted to. But seeing you here tonight, Maya, it's killing me. I never stopped loving you. Her breath caught. The words she had once longed to hear now felt like poison. She shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. Don't say that. Not when you just promised forever to my cousin. A silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Inside the hall, Candace's laughter floated through the open doors, innocent and bright. Maya turned her head toward the sound, her heart aching. She has no idea, Maya murmured. No, Derek admitted quietly. And if you tell her, everything falls apart. For her, for me, for the family. Maya's chest rose and fell sharply. She had two choices. Protect Candace's happiness by burying the truth, or reveal everything and risk destroying not only her cousin's marriage but her entire family's trust. And yet, a darker thought lingered in her mind. If Candace discovered the truth some other way, wouldn't she blame Maya for staying silent? Derek stepped closer, his voice barely a whisper now. Please, Maya, I'm begging you. Don't say anything. Not tonight. She looked into his eyes, seeing the man she had once loved and the stranger he had become, both at the same time. For the first time that night, Maya realized the truth would come out eventually. The only question was, who would be the one to reveal it? The night was slipping into its final hours. The dance floor pulsed with energy. Children ran across the hall with cake-stained hands, and Candace glowed like a jewel in her second gown. To everyone else, the wedding was a picture of joy. But Maya sat at her table, her chest heavy with the weight of Derek's confession. Every laugh Candace gave, every affectionate glance she threw at her husband, felt like a knife twisting deeper. Maya's throat burned with the truth she carried, and she knew she couldn't hold it in forever. If she were me, Maya thought, wouldn't she want to know? Her decision was made in a heartbeat, though her body shook with fear. She rose from her seat, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor as she approached the stage where Candace was about to give her thank you speech. Candace, Maya called softly. Her cousin turned, her face bright with love and trust. Maya, come up here with me. The invitation nearly broke her resolve, but Maya steadied her trembling hands and stepped closer. She could feel Derek's eyes burning into her, silently begging her to stay quiet. But silence had already stolen 3 years of her life. She wouldn't let it steal her cousin's future, too. Candace handed her the microphone playfully. Say something for us. Maya's mouth was dry. She scanned the crowd, saw the family she loved, and then looked at Derek, his smile stiff, his knuckles white around Candace's hand. Her voice shook at first, but grew steadier with each word. Candace, there's something you need to know about Derek. About me. The room fell silent. Forks clattered to plates, music stuttered to a halt. All eyes turned toward her. Candace's brow furrowed. What do you mean? Maya took a deep breath, tears stinging her eyes. Derek wasn't just some man you fell in love with. He was mine once. We were together for years before he disappeared without a word. And tonight, when I saw him standing here as your groom, I realized you deserve the truth, even if it hurts. Gasps rippled through the hall. Candace turned slowly to Derek, her face pale, her lips trembling. Is this true? Derek's mask cracked. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again. Candace, answer me, she snapped, her voice slicing through the stunned silence. Finally, he nodded, his head dropping in shame. Yes, it's true. Maya and I were together, but it ended years ago. Candace recoiled as if struck. Tears welled in her eyes. You let me marry you knowing this? You thought I'd want a life built on secrets. Candace, please, he pleaded, reaching for her hand. But she pulled away as though his touch burned. Maya's own tears streamed freely now. I never wanted to hurt you, but I couldn't sit here and let you live in a lie. Not when I know the pain it caused me. The hall erupted with murmurs. Relatives whispering, friends exchanging shocked glances. Candace looked between Maya and Derek, her chest rising and falling in quick, shallow breaths. Finally, she tore off her wedding ring and let it clatter onto the floor. I can't do this. Not with you, she said coldly to Derek. Gasps followed her words as she turned and fled the stage, her bridesmaids hurrying after her. Derek stood frozen. The perfect image of a groom shattered into pieces. The guests began to scatter, some muttering disapproval, others staring at Maya as if she were both villain and savior. Maya felt her knees weaken, but deep inside, a strange calm settled over her. She had spoken the truth. It had broken everything, but it had also set her free. As she walked out of the glittering hall into the cool night air, the weight she had carried for years seemed to lift. The stars stretched above her, quiet and eternal, reminding her that no matter how dark the past had been, there was always a chance for a new beginning. For the first time in years, Maya felt like she could breathe again, and this time, she promised herself she would never let silence steal her voice.